Hey guys, in today's session we are going to create recipe finder application using HTML, CSS and JavaScript. We build application that you currently seeing on my screen and we load bunch of recipes of type paneer on page load. On hover of any recipe, we show the process of making the recipe in the form of bullet points. We implement search functionality using which we can search for your favorite recipe. We also make this application responsive too. As you resize the application, we can see our recipes will be fit into the screen properly, and also as we reach to the mobile version, we change the look and feel. And by the end of the video, you will be learning many CSS and JavaScript concepts. So let's get started. I have recipe finder folder created on my desktop. Open it and open Visual Studio Code from here. Open with code. Let's create three required files. New file, index.html, style.css, app.js. Let's create HTML boilerplate code, exclamation symbol, press enter. Change the title from document to recipe finder. Let's run it. Right click, open with live server. Now let's create HTML markup. We are going to have the header, and then we are going to have the section with the CSS class container. So this container is going to have the search area and container for our recipes. So I'm going to use the ID recipe-container, and this recipe container is going to have the recipes. So let's create the recipe, and recipe is going to have the recipe title, recipe image and recipe text. Now let's have some title here. Let's say recipe title, and here image we are going to have the image src. We have the images under images folder, images / recipe.jpg. alternate text will be recipe, and for the recipe text we are going to have the unordered list with list items of 5, and just select all these list items. Step 1. So I quickly change the numbers here. Header is going to have the title and search icon. So here recipe finder, image src, images / search.svg, and alternative text will be search. Search bar is going to have the input type text, and so button with CSS class button btn, and text will be find. So let's have the autofocus, placeholder, search, favorite. Cool. So now we are done with our HTML markup. Now let's style it. Before that, let us refer the style.css in HTML file. So we can use the link and href style.css. Let's go to style.css. As usual, let's default the margin and padding globally. So margin 0 and then padding 0, and box sizing border box. Let's define the body. Height 100 viewport height, width 100 viewport width, background. So we are going to have the light color. So I am going to define the CSS variables because we are going to reuse these variables. To declare the CSS variables globally, we have to use colon and then root, and open the flower brackets like this, and you can give any name like say light color. I am going to use the value FFF. Same way hyphen dark color 282828. And we're going to have the header height 70 pixel, and the same way we're going to define the search height. So search height 50 pixel, border color as CCC. Cool. Now here to use the CSS variable, we can simply use the var and light color. Now let's define the header. So header height, we are going to have the CSS variable header height, which is 70 pixel, and then we are going to have the background color. To arrange the recipe finder and icon in the same line, we are going to use the display flex, and align items center. Justify content, we are going to place them at the end, so flex end, and we need some color like var light color so that we can see our recipe finder. And for icon, we are going to write the CSS, and before that let us have some gap between these two items like 10 pixel, we need to have some padding, right? So PR 30 pixel, not 330, should be 30 pixel. Header space image filter invert 1. Now we can see the image 2. Let us define our search area. So search, and once again we are going to have the display flex and justify content center, align items center. Height, we have the where header, sorry, not, it should be search height. Let's define this text box and the button. So search input type equal to text, padding 8 pixel, 10 pixel, and then line height 1.5, font size 1 rem, and we are going to have the border none, but we are going to have the border left, 1 pixel, solid, and we are going to use the where border color, and border bottom we are going to have, but we are going to have the transparent color. So again 1 pixel, solid, transparent color. It should be border left, not the border. And then outline we should not have, so outline none. And define the focus, we are going to show the border bottom and transparent for the border left. Border left color transparent, and then border bottom color, say border bottom space color where border color. Now let's focus. Border bottom color, we have the border left color. Okay, cool. Now input focus. Okay, now we can see it is working, but we don't see it smooth, right? So let's have the transition here. So transition all 200 milliseconds is in out. So now we can see it smooth. So let's define the find button also. So we have applied button CSS class, padding 8 pixel, 10 pixel, background we are going to have transparent color. So border radius user select none, font size 1 rem, 1 pixel, solid, and we are going to have some blue color. Let's have the cursor pointer. Whenever we hover on button, we are going to change the background color. So let's do it quickly. So button over, we are going to apply the background, this blue color, and also border color, so maybe border color dark color, so where light color. Now whenever we hover on it, we are going to change like this. Let's have the some width for this search box 60%, and on focus we are going to have the width 61%, and also let's have some gap between the search box and the button. So here we can give the gap 10 pixel, and finally let's have some box shadow for this search area. Box shadow 0 pixel, 2 pixel, 8 pixel, and 0 pixel where border color. Forgot to define that container, and we're going to have text align center. Height of the container will be like 100 VH minus this header height. So calculate 100 VH minus where header height. So take this recipe container, go to style.css and define here. So since we have used ID, we are going to use the font symbol and display flex and justify content center. It is already center actually. So align items, flex start. Now let's style this recipe. Have the recipe and height 300 pixel, and the same way width 300 pixel, and then recipe title. So recipe hyphen title, height 50 pixel, display flex, and align items center and justify content center. And also we have the font size 1 rem. I think let's have like this. Recipe image, save it. Recipe image, height let's say 210 pixel, recipe image space image, height let's take it 100%, and at the recipe level let's have the padding 4 pixel. So we need some box shadow. So box shadow 0 pixel, 8 pixel, 2 pixel, and we have the border color. And also let's have some margin. So margin 20 pixel. So for each recipe we are going to have the margin. Now let us style this another list. Recipe hyphen text. So we are going to have the height 120 pixel, but actually we need to hide it to by default, but for the styling purpose we are just adding the height. We see how it is coming up. So height 120 pixel, and visibility, let's have the visible, and opacity. So 0 means it's going to be hidden, so let's have the one as of now. So we are going to change it, transition all 200 milliseconds is in out. First we are going to style this unordered list. So recipe test space unordered list. So here we have the list style as bullet points. So let's have the circle. So list type circle. We can see these circles are outside of this recipe box, so let them place inside. So for that we can use list type position, say inside. The text align left, and also we need to have some padding. So padding 5 pixel. Now let's define the list item. So take this, and here padding I give 5 pixel. Now let's go to the recipe test, and let's define height 0 pixel. Visibility should be hidden by default. So now we can't see them, and opacity should be 0. So here actually we don't require the opacity when we use the visibility hidden, but for the transition purpose we are adding the opacity 0. And now whenever we hover on this recipe, then we need to show this recipe text, and also we need to increase the height of this recipe container. So for that we can simply say recipe and hover. So on hover of the recipe text, here height 120 pixel, and visibility visible, and opacity 1. Cool. Now see, so whenever we hover on it we can see it. And also let's have some background color also for it. So background, whenever we hover on the recipe, we are going to increase the height of recipe. So height, let's say 420 pixel. There we go. And let's have some margin top for this recipe text, empty 20 pixel, hidden, and overflow by auto. Now we can see the scroll bar, and we can see even this recipe container is increasing. And let's have some transform effect. So transform. So we are going to have the scale by default 0.8 zoom, and whenever we hover we are going to show the 100% zoom. So for that we are going to say transform scale 1. So zoom in effect is coming from the left, right? So what we are going to do, we are going to have the transition on the recipe. So here again we have to have transition like all 200 milliseconds is in out, and now we can see that cool effect. So let's have this recipe test to transform from the top left, transform origin. So transform origin top space left. Now we can see it coming from the top left. Now we are done with creating markup and styling the recipe. Now we need to fetch the recipes from the service and load them dynamically. For that I am going to use the recipe search API from the edamame.com. So I am going to tell you about API details here. Go to the browser and search for edamame, and select this edamame.com. Click on APIs, select recipe search API, and here you have 3 options: developer, enterprise core, and enterprise unlimited. Select developer version, get started, and provide some basic details. And under choose plan, just select developer under the recipe search API, then just click on submit and sign up. I have already signed up, so I am going to log in. Click on login, and then go to dashboard, click on applications. Here click on the view. Here we can see the application ID and application keys. Just copy and store at your local. Click on the edamame home page and click APIs once again. Select recipe search API, and here click on the documentation this time. Here we have the API endpoints. Click on this APIs/recipe/v2, and here we need to provide the 3 required parameters. Q for query, like what type of recipe you want to search, like chicken, fish, egg, paneer, whatever. So let's say if we have say chicken, if you are already signed up, and when you click on this API_ID text box, you will be prompted with API IDs. So select recipe search API, and also API key, similarly select recipe search API, and then scroll down and click on the try it now. So here we have try it now. There we go. Here we got the response, and we have the response under the hits object, right? Here we have the array of recipes, and this is the URL. So let's go to the app.js. So I have already copied app id, app key and base URL, and in the base URL we just have the app id and app key, and we need to append the query to this. So here I'm going to write a function first of all. So let's say function load recipes. We're going to have the parameter like type with the default value paneer, and we can have anything of course. To make a service call, we are going to use the fetch API of JavaScript. Fetch, and it is going to take the URL. So we need to form the URL first. So here let's have the constant URL equal to base URL plus we are going to append the query. So use the backticks. Whenever we are going to append the query string, we need to use the and symbol, and q equal to. So here we are going to use the dollar and this type. So cool. So let's pass the URL for this fetch URL, and it's going to return the promise. So let's chain it then, and it's going to give the response, and we need to use the response.json method on it. And if you are not aware of this fetch API, please refer my suggested video. And again it's going to return the data this time, and we need to chain it. So this time we're going to get the data, and we have the data under the data.hits, right? Let's console log data.hits, and if there is an error, we are going to catch it using the catch error and say console.log error. Now let's make a call to this load recipes. So before we running it, don't forget to refer this app.js in IntersetAdjacentHtml. So let's go here and script src app.js, and I use defer keyword so that our JavaScript will be loaded once HTML is completely loaded. Press F12. There we go. Here we have array of recipes, and each item is having the recipe object again. And this recipe object is having the image, ingredient lines, which are nothing but recipe steps. It is having the label, which is nothing but the recipe name. So now we need to render the recipes dynamically. So for that I am going to write a function render recipe, and it is going to receive the recipe list. So recipe list, we are going to iterate through this recipe list. So recipe list dot for each. So here it is not giving the auto intelligence. So to get the auto intelligence on the array item, so here we can use a simple trick like just as an equal to and this empty array. Now whenever we just type dot, we are going to get all the array methods, right? So for each, and say recipe object, and inside that we are going to form the recipe string. So I'm going to cut this entire recipe. So cut it, because we are going to render it dynamically, so we don't require an HTML file. Let's have the constant HTML string equal to, use the backticks, and inside that let's paste it. Now we need recipe title, recipe image, and recipe steps, and we can get them from the recipe object. So we're going to destructure the recipe object equal to. So we know recipe object is having again the object called recipe, and from the recipe we are going to get the label, right? So label. Now press F12, and here we have array of recipes, and here we have the recipe object. Under the recipe object we have the label, and then we have the ingredient lines. Just take it, just mention ingredient lines, and comma, we are going to have the image. So here I say alias name recipe image, and the same way for label like recipe title. Let's bind them. So to bind them, simple, just remove this recipe title, use the dollar symbol, recipe title. Same way we are going to use this recipe image. So instead of src, we are going to use the dollar and recipe image, and we need to iterate through these ingredient lines, and we need to form these list items, and we are going to do this in a while. So before that, let us render this on the recipe container. So let us access the recipe container, recipe container equal to document dot query selector font symbol and recipe container. So take this recipe container, and here I am going to use the IntersetAdjacentHtml method. This is part of the manipulation. I have made a video on it. Please do watch if you are not aware of it. Once we form the HTML string, we are going to say recipe container dot insert adjacent HTML. It is going to take the two values, insert position and the HTML string. So insert position I am going to give before end HTML string. So HTML string. We need to call this render recipes, right? Unless we call it, we don't see them on the screen. So we can pass this data.hits and call it render recipes of, we are going to pass the array of the recipes. So which is nothing but data.hits. Save it. There we go. Now here we have all the recipes loaded, but we don't see them properly because we need to wrap them. So style.css and go to our recipe container, flex wrap and use the wrap. We have all the items. Whenever we mouse over, we can see all the steps. Of course, we are yet to bind this data. Let's write a function that returns the steps. So I'm going to say constant get recipe steps. So recipe steps string equal to ingredient lines, and which is nothing but an array. So let str equal to empty string, loop through this ingredient line. So use the for loop where step of ingredient lines str equal to str plus backticks. So we are going to use the list item, right? So list item, and close the list item, and in between we are going to have dollar, and let's use the step. After the loop, just return str. Now let's call this before this HTML string. Let's call here constant recipe step str equal to now get recipe step str and pass ingredient lines. Let us remove these all steps. Dollar symbol, of course, dollar, and inside that let's use this. Now just maximize it. There we go. Now we got all our steps. Here we have the scroll bars, horizontal and vertical scroll bars. So go to style.css and body and say overflow hidden, because we don't require the overflow on the body level. So we need the overflow only for this recipe container. So let's go to the recipe container. So let's calculate the height for it. Height, calculate here 100 vh minus, here we need to subtract the height of this search area and header, and this 20 pixel also, right? Margin 20 pixel. So where header height, and then give space plus and space where search height, and give space plus 20 pixel, and just enclose them. Now we have like this something broken. Go to our recipe container. Yeah, so this height is not correct. Okay, so here we have something wrong. So here we need to close this once again. Now it is correct. Let's have the overflow for this. So overflow hidden and overflow y auto. Cool. Now let's go here. There we go. Now we can see the overflow for our container, and our container ends here, right? And whenever we just mouse over on it, we can see the list of ingredients. Let us add the Google font to Nunito. So go to Google Fonts Nunito, select any style, select this style, and click on the import, select this link and use it. Select this Nunito font family. So we are going to apply for all the elements. So just use here. So now we have Nunito Google font applied, and now we can see them, right? Unselect the ingredients. We are seeing the blue background and font color white, right? So let's change it. So if you want to change it, we can use the selection pseudo class. So simply double colon selection color where light color. So background we can have lime green, and if you don't want it very bright, you can just reduce it like this, something cool. Now let's go over here. See, Now we can see the light green. So let's have some border radius. So border radius 4 pixel, 4 pixel, 0 pixel, 0 pixel. So now it will only apply for the border left top and border right top. 4 pixel is very less, maybe some 8 pixel. So now we need to implement the search functionality. So whenever we search for some recipe and click enter or click the find button, we need to get the new recipes. So let's access this text box first. So for the text box, I am going to give some ID text search and take this and app.js text search equal to document dot query selector found symbol text search dot add event listener, and we're going to use the key up event of it, key up, and then it's going to take the callback function and it's going to receive the event, right? So just e and say e dot key code equal to 13. So if it is enter, then just we need to call this load recipes and we need to just pass. So load recipes, and we are going to pass whatever user typed in the search box. Const input val equal to text search dot value. We can just pass this input value. Search for chicken, chicken, and press enter. Here we can see that chicken items are added at the bottom, right? So you can see crispy chicken, some chicken recipes are added. So but we have to clear these paneer items which were added on page load. So whenever we make a call to this load recipes, we need to clear the recipes that we already rendered on the UI. We need to clear this recipe container items. So here we need to make simply recipe container dot inner HTML equal to just empty. Now let's go here and just search for chicken this time again. Press enter. So now we have cleared all the paneer recipes and loaded the chicken recipes. And if we search for fish, so we haven't got any recipes because the spelling is wrong. So just say fish. Now we are going to get all the fish recipes, and whenever we hover on it, we are going to get the recipe text and simply say egg, and we are going to get all the egg items. So till now we are loading the recipes on click of the enter button. So now let's go and implement this find click. Just access the find button find equal to, so document dot query selector, and we're going to use the button, and again we are going to listen to the button find dot add event listener of click event, right? So whenever we click on the button, just we are going to have the arrow function and call load recipes, and here we're going to pass text search dot value. Now just search for something mutton and click on the find. Now we are going to get all the mutton recipes. Say egg, press enter or hit the find button, we are going to get the same response. Now whenever we just scroll down and if we search for something like say fish and press the enter, we can see that our scroll position is still at the bottom. So we need to reset the scroll whenever we search the any recipe. So for that we are going to write a function again, set scroll position recipe container dot scroll to, and it is going to take the object top 0, and then we can use the behavior and value smooth. Set scroll position once we render all the recipes. We can have finally method here, fish, press enter, we get the fish curries, and just scroll down and search for something egg, press enter. There we go. Now our scroll is set to top, and also we can see the smooth transition. So now let us show some loading image. So here we are going to define the loading div. So loading, go to style.css and hash loading. Let's have the background. We are going to use the URL images / spinner.gif, and then no repeat, center and center, and then position we are going to have the absolute position, and then width 100%, height 100%, and finally most important thing, g index 999. So now let's go and see. Now the loading image is always appearing. We need to show it whenever we fetching the data from the service. Const loading element equal to document dot query selector of hash loading. Here I am going to define one common function like constant toggle load equal to, and it is going to take the two parameters, that is element comma isShow. Element dot class list dot toggle, add the hide css class, and whenever isShow is true, just define this hide css class hide display none, and let's have the important. So whenever we got the data and successfully render it, then we need to call this, and we need to false true. And the same way, whenever there is an error, again we need to call it, so just pass it true because we need to stop showing it. We can see the loading image, and once we loaded all the recipes, we don't see them. And just search for fish and click on find. Now even we don't see. Now we need to just add it, right? So what we can do, instead of true, let's have false. So whenever we make a call, we need to show it, right? So if we search for fish now, press enter, we are going to see the loading image, and once the recipes are loaded, we are going to hide it. Same way, whenever you click on the find button, we are going to show the loading image, and once the recipes are loaded, we are going to hide it. Now we are done with almost everything, and we are left with rendering it on the mobile version. At media only screen and max width 700 pixel. Let us change the background color of body. So body background RGB red 54 and 194 tab 54. Save it. Now let's go and just resize it. There we go. Now we got the body, right? Now let's change the background color of this recipe, and let's change the background color. We are going to have the light color, so where light color. Cool. Now we have the light color, and also box shadow pixel 0 pixel 10 pixel and 2 pixel, where dark color. So we are going to increase some width like 350 pixel instead of the 300 pixel. Now we have the width properly. Change the background for this search area. Input type background, again transparent, color ash FFF, which is nothing but our light color, so light color. Let's have the background color for button also. So button, let's have the background color, maybe transparent, color where light color, like light color, and where dark color. And finally we are going to style our scroll bar. Here I am going to paste some code, like here we are setting the width 10 pixel for scroll bar and background color, and we are changing the save it and go to our application. So now we can see the new look and feel for the scroll bar, and even we can see the scroll bar changes for the scroll bar that is available in the recipe steps. So while calculating the recipe container height, we just subtracted this 20 pixel, so we don't require this margin 20 pixel. Now we can just remove it. Now it occupies the complete height. Cool. So this is about creating recipe finder using HTML, CSS and JavaScript. I am sure you learned something new, and please do hit the like button, and also please subscribe to my channel